afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Getting In, a College Coach Conversation. We just did a whole segment on visiting colleges. Good information, whether you're doing your visits during the summer or during the year, although we were focused on the beauty of going during the summertime. But we only talked about the admissions side or the exploration side of finding out if this is a perfect fit for you. But there's a whole other side, as most people are highly aware, and that is the paying for all of this side of going to college. And so for that reason, we also wanted to cover the financial questions that you can and should be asking during your visits. And joining me for that is my colleague, Alex Gonzalez, who's also a former financial aid officer at the University of Portland. Hi, Alex.
Hi, great to be here.
Absolutely. Excited to have you here, especially because when we connected prior to doing this segment, it struck me how many questions there are that families can and should be asking. And so I'm really happy to have you here and to have you have thought through all of these questions, because in my own head, I had like a handful, but there are a lot. But let's start with the basics, which is, why should prospective students even be thinking about the financial side of things right now?
Yeah. I will say that, it might not be at the top of mind right now as you're exploring, you're getting, you're looking at campuses, differentiating the accommodations, the learning styles, but from the finance side, we want to know kind of what we need to do. So you talked about the summer and what to ask, admissions offices. This is a great time to kind of ask, how do we access your financial aid programs? Is it financial aid forms? Is it scholarship opportunities? And your questions will change as you are going through the process, whether you've submitted your application, you're looking at the value of the campus, and then it'll ultimately help your final decision. Is when we talk about that right fit, I think about it as the triangle: the environment of success, the learning programs, and also the affordability. It is a 4-year budget. So we want to make sure that we take advantage of all the opportunities that are on campus as well.
Right. And I'll throw out there another one too, for those families for whom whether or not they can afford college is going to be a big component of the decision-making process, which, by the way, is most families. Yeah. Waiting until you get in and learn what kind of how much it's going to cost and what will be available to you to help you pay for it is the worst decision that you could make, right? You need to be anticipating what it might be. And it may be that you can clearly see that a school or a group of schools are going to be financially unattainable, in which case I wouldn't, maybe those are schools that come off the list. I have shared my own son's journey a few times, and there was a group of schools that he didn't even apply to because we knew we weren't going to qualify for financial aid, and the merit aid that was available, should he qualify for that merit aid, would not have brought the price into a reasonable place for us. So, we just kind of said, okay, well, let's not get excited about a group of schools that we can't afford. And, in many cases, we didn't visit those schools, and he didn't apply to those schools. And I think it certainly ended up with a whole lot less stress around having something that you can't have at the end of the day. So.
Yeah. Well, and you asked those questions. I know that, there were, different chats throughout that whole process, and like what to ask and what not to, and what to ask, and like, will colleges look at this a little bit different? Will they view me if I ask about paying for college? I know a lot of families that I talk to get nervous about that. They think if I bring up costs, then, they're going to think that I can't attend. Well, it's the context of it. I remember being in the financial aid office, being in an admissions office, scholarship offices, and we talked about cost. We wanted to make sure that families knew that information up front, to
Yep.
make those informed decisions, to know how to access the information as well, so that they were meeting the timelines. Because if you've been there, I've been there on
Yep.
those decision trees, and it's spring, and and a family finally asks, how can I get a scholarship? And you're like, no, we needed that application in the fall, and
Yes.
and all these opportunities that you missed. And so great time to kind of build your list, ask those questions. What do I need to do to access those?
Yes. So actually, let's jump in. What are the questions that you would be asking when you're on a college campus doing these visits, especially during the summer?
Yeah, I ask timelines. What do I need to do to maximize my financial aid or my opportunities here? Again, you're thinking about access. What do I need to do early on, potentially before you apply or kind of right in the process of applying, so that you don't miss any dates? Are there early dates for priority for scholarships? Is there an early, what types of forms do I need to fill out? Is there a separate application, or are there department applications based on my talent, that I need to apply for? Where do I go? And
Yep.
and do know that it could be a little bit different at each college. And so I think a pro tip for that is looking at who has your earlier deadlines and building your timeline for that, and then kind of tailoring your applications to those earlier timelines to maximize your opportunity. And then you get to explore. You get, the decision is in the college's hand. You're exploring the value that that college might bring to the table.
Right. Right. And then, there obviously at some schools, there's going to be financial aid
Mhm.
forms, right, that you need to fill out and some deadlines. And then at other schools, there might be financial aid and merit. So want to be clear here for everyone who's listening, not all colleges offer merit scholarships, which have nothing to do with your ability to pay, typically.
Yeah.
Some schools are only going to offer financial aid. Some are going to offer financial aid and merit. So understanding what the options are even at that school, right? Do you do merit aid, or is it
Yeah.
all purely financial? I think those are some good questions to ask.
Oh, definitely.
What about when a student applies, and not just in terms of hitting the financial aid deadlines, but early decision, early action, regular decision? Any questions you would ask around those different application deadlines, admissions
Yeah.
applications deadlines?
Yeah, especially it's really important for a family to kind of have a better context
Mhm.
of during an early decision, or being an early decision candidate, because you're essentially committing to that university if you're being admitted.
Right.
So asking a college, what is the net price calculator? So that can help determine what types of financial aid and the cost of the college that individually I might be able to expect. Also asking whether or not there's a scholarship calculator that is shared with students as well, so that you have an idea of, like, based on how I am as a candidate, and if that college provides scholarships, am I a candidate? Can I take
Right.
advantage of that? Because some of it you will know, like the financial aid information, you'll know kind of, okay, this is what I'm responsible for. This is what the university is going to bring to the table. But sometimes merit scholarships, we can predict it, maybe the likelihood, but
Right.
maybe not the dollar amount. And so we
Mhm.
need to be prepared of, like, kind of what those costs look like, and asking those questions. What is my opportunity in the early decision if I apply, versus do I have more opportunity in the regular decision, or do I have more agency in the choice,
Right.
where I can pick and choose and compare award letters? Sometimes that's what a family is looking to do, and it's okay for that to be a decision of whether or not you apply regular decision or early decision.
Right.
We work with a lot of families that do that.
Right. There are some schools where the package that you get will be different if it's early versus regular. And usually that's at schools that are that offer merit aid, right? Because merit aid is typically used to lure students to campus
Mhm.
who might have other choices. So if you're already committing to that school, the likelihood that you get merit aid, not at all schools, but at many schools, will be slim because they don't have to worry about luring you to campus. You're coming, right?
Yeah, you've kind of said, we are coming here. You are the one, you're the right fit. And so
Right.
you want to make sure that you do that due diligence and ask, but whether it's the financial aid office, sometimes questions to the kind of the admissions presentation will have a segment that's dedicated to the finances, but definitely if you're not receiving that information, asking, where do I get that
Yeah.
information?
Yeah.
Or how could I explore? There's kind of a difference between your current circumstance where a presentation or a college tour, they might not be able to answer that particular nuance part of that question, but asking, where might I get that information? Where is it located on the financial aid website? Is there an opportunity for an appointment with a financial aid counselor that I can kind of ask some of these kind of more tailored questions? So those are all great kind of questions to ask and be mindful of, is that it is part of the process.
Yeah,
Um,
it
and,
is.
and colleges are expecting you to ask those types of questions.
Well, and actually to that point, Alex, when you were doing financial aid, would you meet with a let's say you have a junior, or maybe a rising senior, it's July, and they're coming to your campus to visit. Could they make an appointment with you so that could be part of their visit?
Yeah, in certain circumstances, yeah.
Okay.
So if we had a summer program, typically, I mean, it depended on who was in the office.
Mhm.
We tended to have more kind of tailored programs as well in the summer. So we might guide you to um, like a special summer visitation day where
Sure.
there's an admissions counselor giving a talk and a financial aid representative kind of talking about the different processes there. But yeah, I think having a conversation once you were admitted, I think we were more open to larger conversations about kind of the workings of what does your financial aid look like? What are your options? So asking questions about, you know, payment plans, asking questions about like kind of um, um, impacts on other types of financial aid or outside scholarships coming in, what that impact was. Um,
Right.
or special circumstances about where you might want to be comfortable asking that in a group of students and families.
Right, absolutely. And so I think you bring up a good point, which is, you had special visit days for rising juniors, not all rising seniors, not all schools do those. Different schools are going to do it differently. The website for all of these institutions is always going to be your best place to start. They're
Mhm.
not the same, right? So I wish
Yeah,
I could say on every school's institution, you're going to find X, Y, and Z in these exact places. But, poking around on the websites is going to give you a lot of insight. Before we have a few minutes left, and so I do want to get to, because there are a number of other questions that you recommend students ask.
yeah.
Can you run through a couple of them? We have about 2 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. So there are kind of the deadline questions, the questions about coming from like how merit, how financial aid, all on topical minds. But there are also things about the cost that are important to ask as well. So beyond the scholarships, beyond the financial aid questions, that can lead to kind of those outlying costs that I would say some families aren't necessarily thinking about when they go and do their first visits. So
Right.
reminder, it's the cost of attendance. So it's beyond just tuition. We think, oh, and when you go to your first college financial aid night, you go, oh, it's more than tuition. It's room and board and books and supplies and personal expenses are all part of that. So on the tour, these are questions that you can ask students as well. Do you live off campus? Was it easy to find off campus? Is it more expensive or less expensive to live in the dorms? Are you taking advantage of discount programs with laptops or other services, book services? How's the library? Do I have the opportunity to maybe check out a book versus take one of those giant science books that are, hundreds of dollars, and
Right.
and kind of save there and kind of work your budget back of what might kind of how can you maybe limit your costs moving forward?
Yeah.
So yeah.
So there, I did want to direct our listeners because there are so many good questions that you could be asking, and we've touched on many of them, but there are plenty more.
Hmm.
If you go to the College Coach blog, so you'll find that at blog.getintocollege.com/finance questions to ask on a college visit. So I would recommend checking out our blog, period, because there's so much good information there. But if you are looking for a great resource of questions that you should be asking when you're doing these visits, again, you'll find it at blog.getintocollege.com. And this particular blog is /finance questions to ask on a college visit. You could even Google that, do, College Coach, finance questions to ask on a college visit. That should get you there, but just go to our blog and then you can search by topic once you're in there. Alex, thank you so much for joining today. I really appreciate it. Lots of great information.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Don't go away because we're going to wrap all of this up with another summer focused activity, and that is using this time to explore some student interests. So don't go away.